The United States just attacked Venezuela's capital, hitting military facilities in the country. President Trump ordered this operation. There were multiple explosions in Caracas starting at around 2 a.m. local time. You can see the video here coming in. It shows low-flying aircraft in the city. This is the first U.S. military attack within the country.
It's a long walk to face the wrath of American justice for Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia. Dressed in matching tan prison uniforms, they're led in handcuffs from a chopper, headed to their first court appearance, surrounded by heavily armed federal agents.
The world woke up thinking it was just another Friday. But long before sunrise, while most of Caracas slept, the sky over Venezuela's capital had already begun to change. First, the lights went out. Then came the explosions, deep, rolling blasts that shook the darkness. Then, something even stranger happened. A fleet of helicopters tore through the night sky at low altitude, moving with the precision of a machine rehearsed 1,000 times. Inside those helicopters, elite American operators were already seconds away from breaching a fortress few believed could ever be penetrated. Inside that fortress, the president of Venezuela and his wife were already running toward a panic room built for a siege, not knowing that the siege was already over. By dawn, the impossible had happened. Nicolas Maduro, one of Washington's longest-standing rivals, had vanished from Venezuelan soil. Whispers spread before the facts did. Fears spiked before clarity arrived. Governments from Moscow to Beijing to Brasilia demanded answers, and one question rose above the rest. What really happened that night, and why did the United States risk everything to pull it off? In this video, let's find out. The events that erupted in early December were not improvised flashes of military aggression, nor were they the product of spontaneous presidential fury. They were the culmination of a mission designed in silence and perfected in shadows. It was Operation Absolute Resolve, a plan so heavily compartmentalized that many senior officials in Washington only learned of its existence once Nicolas Maduro was already in American custody. What unfolded that night was not merely an operation. It was a fusion of intelligence engineering, geopolitical ambition, and energy strategy stitched together into a 2-hour eruption that stunned the world. To understand how it happened, one must begin not with the raid, but with the months of invisible preparation that made the impossible seem almost inevitable. Those preparations began with surveillance, an unbroken, all-consuming observation campaign that turned Maduro's daily existence into a predictable model. The United States did not rely on a single source of intelligence. It compiled layers of them, each designed to map a different aspect of the Venezuelan leader's life. His sleeping rhythms, his guarded drives across Caracas, the manner in which his safe house staff rotated shifts, the blind spots inside his compound walls. Every detail became a data point. Electronic traces from his security personnel revealed when they were most alert and when they were tired. Intercepted communications hinted at which rooms in the Caracas fortress were used for planning and which were used for hiding. Intelligence teams at Langley and JSOC's targeting cell continually updated simulations that charted Maduro's potential escape routes, including disguises he was rumored to have practiced. But information alone could not guarantee success. The CIA and Pentagon understood that even perfect surveillance was not enough to ensure a clean extraction. The United States needed something far more ambitious, a physical duplicate of Maduro's fortress. It had to be built life-size, with flawless precision, because any errors in dimensions or structure could cost the mission seconds, and seconds could be fatal. And so, deep inside a classified military zone, far from public eyes, American Special Operations Forces built a full-scale replica of Maduro's safe house grounds. Every wall was recreated with matching height and resistance. Corridors were measured down to the centimeter. Guard stations were reproduced with the same angles and fields of view. Even the panic room door, Maduro's last resort, was constructed using materials that mimicked the resistance profile of the original. To the operators training there, it was as if Caracas had been uprooted and dropped into a remote piece of American desert. Here, the real battle unfolded long before the first helicopters ever lifted off. Delta Force rehearsed entry after entry, testing breaching charges and then abandoning them when analysts warned they posed a lethal risk to the target. Silent entry drills were replaced by aggressive ones. Roof insertion was tested at night, then again at dawn, then again under simulated gunfire. Helicopters hovered so low above the replica compound that rotor wash shook the training grounds. By the time the Pentagon deemed the unit ready, the operators had run the operation more than 40 times, each rehearsal sharpening the speed and accuracy required for a capture mission, rather than an assassination. Yet even with all this preparation, the mission nearly began 4 days earlier. Trump had initially given a form of conditional approval, triggering the mobilization of assets across the Caribbean. Aircraft repositioned, naval vessels adjusted formation, and certain teams moved to forward staging zones. But just as the final stage approached, the Pentagon intervened. Heavy cloud cover over Caracas threatened to blur drone feeds and disrupt laser-guided devices essential for precise breaching. Helicopter navigation in low-visibility conditions risked catastrophic failure. Snipers assigned to overwatch positions would be unable to confirm their shots. Faced with these warnings, the Pentagon insisted on delaying. Trump, eager for a flawless operation, yielded. However, the cost of the delay was high. Regional allies sympathetic to Maduro reportedly warned him that American activity around the Caribbean had intensified. The Venezuelan leader became unusually cautious, altering routines and making the operation even more time-sensitive. Thus, by the time the skies cleared, the United States felt greater pressure not only to act swiftly, but to strike in a manner so overwhelming that Maduro would have no meaningful chance to react. The final authorization arrived on a Friday night. From that moment, the Western Hemisphere began to shift in coordinated silence. More than 150 aircraft launched across the region, not all bound for Caracas, but all part of a synchronized web of dominance designed to box Venezuela in from every angle. B-1 Lancer bombers, F-15 and F-35 fighters, P-8 surveillance planes, reconnaissance drones, aerial refuelers, and special operations helicopters took to the air. Some created radar suppression corridors. Others positioned themselves to intercept Venezuelan aircraft. Still others hovered in patterns designed to jam communications. What emerged over Venezuela was not simply an incoming fleet. It was a kinetic architecture designed to suffocate the Venezuelan military's ability to respond. This aerial cage established concentric spheres of control, ensuring that even if Maduro's forces detected something, they would be unable to transmit, coordinate, or counter it effectively. And then, to amplify the shock, the U.S. executed the move that would define the entire mission. It cut the power to the capital. At precisely 1:57 a.m., Caracas was plunged into absolute darkness. The blackout was not a symbolic gesture but a calculated disruption engineered to break coordination among Venezuelan defenders. Without electricity, surveillance cameras, communication towers, and emergency systems went offline. Just 3 minutes later, the first explosions lit the sky. Controlled detonations near military installations designed to divert attention from the actual target. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on the latest news stories on geopolitics, economics, and current affairs impacting your lives. What followed was the moment residents would later recount in disbelief. Helicopters flying unnervingly low, almost brushing rooftops, weaving through the night with eerie precision. Video captured the glow of fires, the echo of sonic booms, and tracer rounds slicing through the dark. During this chaos, Delta Force operators were already inside the city, navigating terrain they had memorized through months of rigorous training and rehearsals. One helicopter took fire, its hull was struck, but the aircraft remained operational and continued toward the objective. When the operators landed, they met immediate resistance. Gunfire cracked across the compound as Maduro's guards attempted to form a defensive perimeter. But the U.S. teams moved with rehearsed speed, overwhelming positions within seconds. At Mar-a-Lago, Trump watched the operation unfold in real time, flanked by CIA Director John Ratcliffe and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, witnessing the culmination of a mission he had championed as the pinnacle of American military precision. At 2:01 a.m., the breach began. Maduro, realizing what was happening, attempted to flee toward his panic room with his wife, Celia Flores. Guards tried to shield them, but Delta Force operators quickly neutralized the resistance. The blowtorch intended for the panic room door was ultimately unnecessary. The operators gained access faster than intelligence teams had predicted. Maduro and Flores were found inside, in what Trump described as a ready position, though they were overwhelmed almost immediately. Within minutes, both were restrained, sedated, and escorted to extraction helicopters. The objective, the live capture of a sitting president on foreign soil, had been achieved. By dawn, Maduro and his wife were aboard the USS Iwima, temporarily held there before being flown to the U.S. naval base at Guantanamo Bay. By evening, they were transferred to Stewart Air National Guard Base in New York. By nightfall, the White House confirmed that Nicolas Maduro was in U.S. custody on drug trafficking charges. Trump delivered a statement declaring that the United States would run Venezuela until a safe, proper, and judicious transition is ready. Across global capitals, there was a deep shock. But this spectacular operation, as dramatic as it was, represented only the surface of a deeper geopolitical shift. The critical question that immediately emerged, whispered among diplomats, shouted by analysts, and debated in international institutions, was not how the mission succeeded, but why it was carried out at all. Trump framed the operation around drugs, migration, and security. He accused Venezuelan criminal networks of fueling U.S. fentanyl and cocaine flows, claims contradicted by experts who note that fentanyl is not trafficked through Venezuela. He blamed Maduro for migrant waves and alleged, without evidence, that Caracas had emptied prisons into migrant caravans. But such explanations failed to align with the extraordinary scale of the military action. A 150-aircraft operation, a blackout of a sovereign capital, an abduction, a naval blockade, and CIA covert missions. To understand the real motive, one must turn to oil, the commodity that has shaped geopolitics for a century. Venezuela holds the largest proven oil reserves in the world, surpassing Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Russia. Crucially, this oil is heavy crude, a dense, tar-like variety that American refineries, especially along the Gulf Coast, are built to process. The United States produces enormous volumes of shale oil, but shale is light crude, incompatible with many American refineries, without extensive and expensive reconfiguration. This mismatch creates what analysts call the Venezuela paradox. The United States is one of the world's biggest oil producers, but it still needs heavy crude from abroad, primarily from Canada and Venezuela, to keep its refinery system running. With Venezuelan shipments reduced to nearly zero due to sanctions, the United States faced a structural supply problem. Thus, when Trump seized Venezuelan tankers, imposed a total naval blockade, and expanded military activity near Venezuelan waters, energy analysts recognized a familiar strategic logic. It was about securing access to long-term heavy crude supplies under the guise of counter-narcotics policy. The only other major repository of similar heavy crude is Russia, a direct competitor in global energy markets. Control over Venezuela's reserves would dramatically reshape the geopolitical energy landscape. Yet oil is only part of the story. The legal and geopolitical fallout magnified the operation's stakes. International law experts labeled the raid an act of war, pointing to the lack of congressional authorization and the violation of the UN Charter. Human rights groups condemned the prior U.S. strikes on vessels, many of which killed civilians. The Senate responded with a war powers resolution aimed at preventing further escalation. Diplomats feared retaliation from Russia, China, or Iran, all longtime partners of Caracas. Across Latin America, outrage spread rapidly. Even governments critical of Maduro warned that the operation signaled the return of classical U.S. interventionism, a revival of the Monroe Doctrine mindset, where Washington enforces dominance across the hemisphere through military might. The fear was not just what happened to Maduro, but what precedent it set. If a sitting president could be removed and abducted by foreign forces, then no Latin American leader was truly sovereign. This operation has the potential to reshape the hemisphere for decades. It may fuel insurgencies, radicalize anti-U.S. factions, inspire international legal battles, and deepen divisions between nations aligning with Washington and those turning toward Moscow, Beijing, and Tehran. Most critically, it forces a renewed confrontation with a long-buried question. Does the United States see Latin America as a collection of independent nations, or as a region still subject to American strategic control? Not only that, but it's an example for the world. When Donald Trump ordered the operation against Nicolas Maduro, he did more than remove a single adversarial leader. He set a precedent for how the United States responds when a country threatens the economic architecture that underpins American global power, especially the petrodollar system. For decades, the strength of the U.S. dollar has been reinforced by the fact that most of the world's oil is traded in dollars, giving Washington unmatched control over global finance, sanctions, and energy markets. Any move away from this system is interpreted not just as economic disobedience, but as a direct challenge to American geopolitical dominance. Venezuela, sitting on the largest proven oil reserves on the planet, had already begun experimenting with selling crude in currencies other than the dollar, like yuan, euros, and even cryptocurrency. For Washington, this wasn't just a symbolic gesture. A country with such immense oil wealth shifting away from the dollar threatens to inspire others, especially nations already under U.S. sanctions, or seeking independence from dollar-based trade. In strategic terms, Venezuela's pivot represented the beginnings of a post-petrodollar reality, one where America's financial leverage weakens and its ability to shape global markets diminishes. Therefore, by removing Maduro through overwhelming force, Trump sent a message that extended far beyond Caracas. States that attempt to undermine the dollar's centrality, particularly through oil markets, will face consequences beyond diplomatic pressure or economic sanctions. The operation signaled that the U.S. is willing to intervene directly, covertly, or militarily when a government's decisions pose a systemic threat to American economic power. Whether justified or not, the precedent is clear. Washington views challenges to the petrodollar as existential, and countries with major energy reserves will be treated not as regional actors, but as potential disruptors of the global order on which the U.S. depends. What do you think? Did the United States capture a dictator, or did it kidnap a sovereign president to seize control of the world's largest oil reserves? If this operation is about drugs, why is it targeting the country with the world's biggest heavy oil reserves instead of the countries where fentanyl actually comes from? In the comments section, share your thoughts on whether the people of Venezuela will be safer and freer after this, or are we about to watch another Iraq-style, Afghanistan-style disaster unfold? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We bring the latest news stories on geopolitics, economics, the changing world order, and current affairs, things you need to stay informed. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.